I'm Lafern Fraser. Your IKTV News Update is up next. On Saturday, Fred J. Dare store located in Middle Street, owned and operated by Syrian businesswoman Mona Dare, was gutted by fire. It took a joint effort by members of the local constabulary to quell the blaze that threatened to spread to other businesses in the area. The firefighters took over 4 hours to get the blaze that started just after 8 a.m. under control. It seemed as if the fire department were having problems getting water up to the top floor of the 3-story building where the fire originated. A few police officers who were assisting with the firefighting were seen wearing dust masks instead of the proper firefighting equipment. The fire is said to have caused millions of dollars in damages to the clothing store that employs about 12 persons. Meanwhile, on Sunday night, firemen also had problems putting out a vehicle that caught fire in Baraboo, near to the police station. Senator Julian Francis gave his reason for not winning his seat in the last general election. On a recently aired IKTV talk program, Unrendered, Senator Francis explained.
In that election, as campaign manager and candidate, it's a very tough job. I was doing well up until the time the election was announced. But from the time the election announced, I'm taken up with daily administrative chores of the party, and my house-to-house campaign ceased on the day that the election was announced.
So you
I didn't go back into the constituency until 3 days before the election.
You were distracted by your other role.
I did it by way of a bullhorn on a vehicle. So nobody house saw me for the 4 weeks of the entire campaign. I knew I was leading on him up to the point of the announcement of the election. And I thought that I had sufficiently to take it through. You can't concentrate on the battle. You concentrate on the war.
Okay.
You know, you may lose a battle, but win the war. As campaign manager, national campaign manager of the party, the major focus for me was winning back the election with 12 seats and about 57% of the votes.
Francis also took the opportunity to respond to the statement which he made, stating that he knew how many Syrians voted for him.
And the person who doesn't do political mathematics is not fit for politics.
But you could get it down to an actual number?
You can get it down by house-to-house visits, by daily conversation with people, and by body language. I mean, you can tell when somebody is supporting you.
So
the reason we do a Coleman and coding in the party. How do you do the Coleman and coding? You visit people, you talk to them, you get their body language, you get their reaction. And you put a tick or an X against them. Or you put an N or a U against them. Because in the way they react to you, basically, Mr. Eustace knew also, had a pretty good idea if he was doing his political mathematics. The number of persons in the Arabic community, and I think that's what you want to get to.
Well, that's what I'm getting at.
In the Arabic community who voted for me, I think he knew.
Unrendered will be aired this Tuesday after the 8 p.m. news updates and also on Thursday at the same time. I did not expect this activity to be of such new significance. These words came from St. Clair Leacock after being present at a Unity Labour Party's campaign in the Central Kingstown constituency on Thursday night. Leacock's presence had allegedly caused some controversy, but he says that this was not the case.
Essentially, what happened last evening is that I showed up at that meeting and that I took a position in the meeting which allowed for minimum of distractions in the meeting. And when Mr. Charles addressed the meeting, and then the Prime Minister himself, I came forward where I would reduce the level of distraction and be able to stare him straight in the face. I'm pleased to say that I did not hear from Mr. Charles any of the acidity which has now become a feature of the ULP administration. But consistently the Prime Minister was all over the place, literally assassinating the character of anything that moves within the New Democratic Party. These are the outrages which I think we should address, because he has admitted that his mouth is foul. He demonstrated that last evening. And I've looked him in the eyes so that when I respond, I can have an objective basis for my statements. And that's all that took place last evening.
He says that the Prime Minister attempts to portray him as someone with a bad character.
His famous phrase for this election is that the Treasury, for example, will run away from me. And these things do not do good for my own character and for my own contribution on the national level here. What is the most painful about it is that there is no more vulnerable politician in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, perhaps since in the Caribbean, than Ralph Gonsalves himself. In fact, I must say to you that there's nothing in my present life or in my past that I would exchange for the accusations that have been leveled at the Prime Minister. And somebody needs to put a stop to his out-of-placeness. And that was one of my ways of sending that message to him, that I will address his onslaught on my personality.
Leacock, who will be running for elections in the same constituency, said that many persons saluted him for his bravery to be present at the campaign. And while members on the ULP greeted him and showed appreciation, the Prime Minister remained disrespectful. Last Thursday, workers at the Ministry of Education had to leave the building due to electrical problems that shut down the ministry's offices for the day. Employees were seen leaving the building after an electrical surge plunged the building into darkness and shut down the air conditioning system. This comes on the heels of Minister of Education Gerlin Miguel claiming that last week 98% of plumbing and electrical issues at schools throughout St. Vincent and the Grenadines had been addressed as at September 10, 2010. In all fairness, joked one employee, she did not say the ministry building, she said the schools. Minister Miguel had also added that there are still a few schools where the work is not yet completed and they are trying their best to have the issues corrected. When selling livestock, write a receipt. That's the advice being given by Jacinta Young of the Communications Unit in the Ministry of Agriculture. Young said last week that in an attempt to cut down on the theft of livestock, the Ministry of Agriculture is urging local farmers to use the receipt books that are now being provided by the ministry. Young said that in keeping with the provisions of the Agricultural Produce and Livestock Prevention of Theft Act, the Ministry of Agriculture is providing receipt books to registered farmers, vendors and sellers of agricultural produce once they show their farmer's ID card. The books are available at all agricultural stations and at the Ministry of Agriculture. The Agricultural Produce and Livestock Prevention of Theft Act asks that a receipt be issued on the sale of agricultural produce or goods. Pope Benedict XVI wrapped up his visit to Britain yesterday with the beatification of Cardinal John Henry Newman, the 19th century Anglican convert, held up by the Pope as a model for the faithful because he followed his conscience at great personal cost. Newman is admired by many Catholics and Anglicans alike, and his influence on both churches is enormous. Yet his deflection from the Church of England in 1845 still rankles some, in that he abandoned Anglicanism because he realized the truth he was searching for could only be found in the Catholic faith. Benedict praised Newman on the eve of his beatification at a prayer vigil in London's Hyde Park that drew an estimated 80,000 people, a significant turnout given Catholics represent only 10% of the population in this deeply secular country. On his third in Britain, the pontiff met with 4 women and a man who were molested by priests as children and told British Catholics at a mass in Westminster Cathedral that he was ashamed of such unspeakable crimes and hoped the humiliation the church felt would help victims and the church alike heal. Australia warned its citizens Monday that next month's Commonwealth Games in India carries a high risk of terrorism. Australia issued the travel advisory a day after 2 Taiwanese nationals were wounded in a shooting at a popular tourist site in India's Old Delhi. Australians in New Delhi should be aware that the Commonwealth Games will be held in a security environment where there is a high risk of terrorism, the advisory said. It added that New Delhi has seen at least 14 major terrorist attacks since 2000 in public places, such as markets and train stations. Police in New Delhi insist Sunday's shooting was not targeted at the Games. It was a local mischief, police spokesman Rajan Bhagat said Monday. Security has, however, been stepped up in the Indian capital, he added. We assure full security not only for the Games but also for the city, Bhagat said. The Games will be held from October 3rd to October 14th. Meanwhile, 2 of India's largest cities, Delhi and Mumbai, are on red alert after the shooting. Gunmen on a motorcycle fired multiple rounds at a tour bus, Karnal Singh of Delhi told police.